Now, I gotta admit, this one made me laugh. Piers Morgan. He is not a Trump-supporting staunch conservative by any means. Had his CNN appearance canceled because he criticized the media for not talking about the Biden laptop scandal. And surprise, surprise, whose show was it? Why, it was Brian Stelter of Reliable Sources. Very reliable indeed when they cancel people because they get criticized. Now, okay, I gotta slow down. We don't know exactly why Piers Morgan was canceled, but Piers Morgan is outraged. They had been pursuing him for weeks to get him to come on and talk about his book. And as soon as he says, you guys are hyper partisan and you need to cover this, they went, bye-bye. You can't come on the show anymore. That's what you get when you watch CNN. Brian Stelter is not a journalist. He's a political commentator. His show is not about reliable sources. It's about echo chamber sources. And I'll tell you what, you can criticize me all day and night. There seems to be this partisan media thing happening. I don't know what else to tell you. But I'm trying to bring on many left-wing personalities. The only problem is they don't want to do it. You know, the IRL podcast, we want to bring on people like Piers Morgan. I mean, I gotta be honest, he's agreeing. Like, I agree with him about the media being partisan, but I'm more than happy to entertain anybody who despises Trump to come on the show and we'll talk about it. You don't get that on CNN. On CNN, you get the same regurgitated garbage. Because I'll tell you this. I'll tell you why. It's not just this one story, but we'll read it. You may remember Piers Morgan from that interview with Alex Jones, where Alex Jones was like, 1776 will rise or whatever. Okay, so Piers Morgan, my understanding is not particularly pro-Trump, right? He's mad, but check this out. It's the audience. Furious liberals demand CNN fire Obama advisor Van Jones for saying Trump doesn't get credit for the good things he has done for the black community. How dare Van Jones give Trump credit because Trump has done good things for the black community? Fire him, they say. Think about that. Think about what CNN is. Why would they cancel Piers Morgan? Because Brian Stelter's show is an echo chamber and his ratings are based upon just soothing the egos of those who scream, I hate Trump. At least here, and in my shows, I can be critical. You're not going to get diehard MAGA flag waving with my content. And so I often have people say, like, well, I disagree with you on some of these things, but I respect, your integrity. Because I'll tell you this. I think it's absolutely astounding that I would be considered right simply because the Democrats have lost their minds. That to me is nuts. And I'm curious as to what happens when this all ends. Assuming it does, I guess. Like, if Joe Biden loses and the Democrats face a reckoning where they realize the American people really do not like whatever it is they're doing, do liberals like me become left again? I have no idea. But I'll tell you this. Liberals are now right wing. No joke. So when they say furious liberals demand, nah, you are wrong. Liberals are supporting Trump right now. Progressives and tribalist resistance types are not liberals. I'm a social liberal. I love it when people are like, I tweeted something to someone on Twitter and someone responded, that's something a liberal would post. You're not a liberal. You guys hate liberals. What are you talking about? The progressives hate liberals. Liberals have become right wing. And so now liberals and conservatives who don't agree on a lot of policy issues, agree on this country, have banded together. How weird is that? The media has made this fringe lunatic faction the left. Congratulations, America. Your left wing is now a bunch of psychopaths. Well, here's the story. Piers Morgan getting canceled from CNN because CNN is trash. They say Piers Morgan has slammed this from the Daily Mail. Piers Morgan has slammed CNN for canceling his interview with the network after he said they and other American news outlets were being biased for not covering a story about a laptop allegedly belonging to Hunter Biden. During an appearance on Fox and Friends on Friday morning, Morgan was played clips of journalists, including CNN's Jake Tapper, dismissing the allegations as false. You know what I love? Fox News had him on instead. I remember, Tulsi Gabbard when she was running, and the main reason that I was just adamant about Tulsi was that her principal position was ending foreign intervention. And a lot of other things I don't completely agree with. I was more on board with gun control for a while. But after all the riots and stuff, absolutely not. And there were things I didn't agree with her on. I'm pretty sure she was against nuclear power, had a lot of progressive policies. But I'm like, look, man, major in the National Guard, core position, we're going to end these wars. And I'm like, I'll take it. And guess what? The only networks that really gave her a fair chance, the only network, was Fox News. And now they're putting up Piers Morgan. So I'll tell you this. They used to say Fox News is faux news, it's fake news, blah, blah, whatever. Actually, Bill Hemmer, Brett Baer, I think Martha McCallum, is that her name? They do a pretty good job. Like the Daily News on Fox, throughout the day. I mean, they do a good job. The pundits, you can talk about the pundits and not liking them. I tell you this, man, there's no point in watching CNN because I know they do this. And this is what I refer to as the CNN challenge. You may have heard me talk about it. Turn on CNN at any point, turn on Fox News at any point, see what they're talking about, and then switch to CNN. And you will find that if Fox News is talking about storms, weather patterns, disasters, conflict, crisis, CNN will be talking about Donald Trump. And that's why they can't have someone like Piers Morgan on, because he might splash cold water in the face of these people, and they might wake up like, whoa, wait, Piers Morgan is criticizing the Bidens? The only way they keep voters for Biden is keeping them in the dark, right? So they're like mushrooms. That's how CNN treats their viewers, like mushrooms. You keep them in the dark and you feed them human waste. Anyway, they say, in turn, the Daily Mail editor at large, Piers Morgan, said journalists in the U.S. were being hyper-partisan for failing to report on or investigate the story. Hours later, Morgan confirmed that his promoting appearance for his new book, Wake Up on CNN's Reliable Sources, which was set to air on Sunday, would no longer occur. Last time I appeared on the show, I appeared after I wrote a series of negative Trump columns, he told the Daily Mail. They were prepared to take me when I was negative, but not so much when I would be slightly more positive. He added that he believes most media outlets have likely not investigated the story because if they do, it could lead to revelations that would cause the Democrats to lose the presidential election. Bravo, Piers Morgan. I never thought I'd be saying that. Piers Morgan coming out and saying what we all know. Did you know that the company that owns CNN was a huge contributor to Hillary Clinton's campaign? I don't know about her campaign specifically. What a lot of people don't understand is when you say like a corporation donates to Joe Biden or whatever, usually what's happening is that there are individuals who work for that company who are donating, a certain amount to the individual, or it could be that the people who run the company are donating money to super PACs. So not the campaign, but basically the campaign. And I'm not a fan of how that stuff works, right? Piers Morgan tweeted, after this interview aired, my book promoting appearance on CNN Reliable Sources this Sunday, which they had pursued me for weeks to do, was abruptly canceled. That's right. There it is. Morgan told DailyMail.com that CNN spent at least a month asking him to appear on the show. He said he had a weird feeling his appearance might be canceled, but he was still very surprised by the move. Maybe they were worried I wouldn't bash Trump as they wanted. And that's what my book itself is all about. Illiberal liberals who want to cancel anybody who doesn't suit their agenda. Morgan said producers at CNN also told him that he was canceled because they reportedly were able to book someone else. Whoa. The executive editor of the Associated Press. I just made the point. That doesn't matter if you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump. A major newspaper has published serious allegations, none of which have been denied by Joe Biden or Hunter Biden. Bravo. Oh, Piers Morgan. Wow, I'm loving this. They deserve to be investigated. The liberal skewed media seems to have taken a view that if they investigated, the Democrats may lose the election. That's a political calculation, not a journalistic calculation. If a story like that breaks, they've got to investigate. Hear, hear. The laptop in question, which contains damning emails and compromising photos, damning emails, and they said twice, okay, of Joe Biden's son, were provided to the New York Post by President Donald Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. So we know all this. I think we get to the point. Many reporters have questioned the validity of the story because the emails have not been independently verified. But Morgan said this is simply due to partisan politics. The fact they're not investigating is a hyper-partisan approach by the U.S. media, he said. He also argued that many more news outlets would be covering the story if the laptop was reported to belong to Donald Trump Jr. rather than Hunter Biden. If you were to substitute Biden's name for Donald Trump Jr., the very liberal skewed media would be all over it like a rash. Standing ovation, good sir. He's right. He's right. And I'm glad he's saying it. But we all know it. So what changes? Apparently nothing. That's the problem. Maybe Donald Trump will win and we'll finally get some kind of wake-up call. But I'll tell you this, man. CNN is not news. If you know people who only ever watch CNN, please consider sharing this video with them. We are 10 days out from Election Day with more than 50 million votes already cast. And my friends, let me tell you, youth voter turnout in many states has skyrocketed. Now, it's early voter turnout. That's the important thing. A lot of people are trying to say, like, look, the young people are turning out. Wow, look how big these numbers, 5, 6 times what it was in 2016. For early vote, we don't have the full vote yet. I'll tell you this. Voter turnout's supposed to be historic, they're saying, based on early vote. It's possible it's not. You know what's interesting is that Gallup released a poll saying voter enthusiasm is normal, totally normal, not special. Now, that was crazy to me. Voter enthusiasm. Now, like, what about everybody for Donald Trump? Oh, yeah, that's good for sure. Like, people are really enthusiastic. But from a historical perspective, Gallup said they thought it was going to be a typical voter turnout year, in which case we may be seeing massive early voter turnout simply because Democrats pushed for it and mail-in voting. It may turn out to be quite typical. And if it does, Trump is going to win. Now, I'm not going to get into full Trump stuff because I got a bunch of other stories for you later in the day on that stuff. I want to keep this one focused on the media because check this out. When Van Jones, it's not the first time he said something good or fair about Donald Trump. But this is exactly the problem that CNN has. Furious liberals demand CNN fire Obama advisor Van Jones for saying Trump doesn't get credit for the good things he has done for the black community. This is a problem that everybody faces in media right now. And the problem is the system. I'll tell you this. If CNN has on Piers Morgan or allows people like Van Jones to say good things about Trump, they will lose viewers. And they should lose viewers. They need to lose these viewers and let these viewers go to MSNBC or anywhere else. But it's the fact that these companies like CNN and these people like Brian Stelter only have on their circle of jerks, if you know what I mean, to talk about how Orange Man is bad. That makes people get wrapped up in this human centipede vortex where they're eating their own refuse. I know, sorry, probably a little gross. The point I'm trying to make is, if Brian Stelter has on somebody who says Donald Trump is bad because he's corrupt, one of, the people who watch that show hear that and they say, wow, Donald Trump is corrupt. Then they come on the show and say, he's extremely corrupt. Then someone here is extremely corrupt. It's like a game of telephone that keeps getting crazier and crazier and crazier. I tell you, man, CNN, MSNBC are probably some of the worst problems we face in this country. And I really mean it. Fox News, yeah, to a certain degree, but they're not as bad. And I'll tell you how I view these things, right? So Van Jones wants to give Trump credit for what he's done for the black community, and the audience revolts. Here's what I see. There is a massive journalism apparatus. I shouldn't even call it journalism at this point. All of these news outlets walk in lockstep with the Democratic Party because they're pandering for tribalist votes. There is a tiny actual resistance, channels like mine. I do not make content specifically because I want Trump to win or, Republicans are good for or anything like that. I actually really don't like Republicans at all. I don't agree with much of their policies. And so left and right in this country means almost nothing at this point. It's basically a tribal identifier, I guess. What I see is you have all of these news outlets lying all the time, just lying all day, every day. And I tell you this, there is an endless amount of content in terms of criticizing the media's duplicitousness, deception, and manipulation. And so what bothers me, if you've been following my career and the things I've talked about with, in these videos and how I got started doing these videos, it was strong media criticism. You know why? Early on, I got started with Occupy Wall Street. I was on the ground. I was live streaming, having a good old time, filming Conflict and Crisis. And at a certain point, I joined Vice. And Vice was okay. We launched Vice News. I was their founding member, first person. Basically, as far as I know, they had no intention of launching it until I came and pitched them. And then we created this thing. And it was fantastic. But it started to become more corporate, more desperate to pander. And there was a lot of issues, so I ended up leaving. I went and worked for an ABC News joint venture with Univision called Fusion. And that was when they said, we are going to lie, basically. That's what they told me. I was told that I looked too white to participate in their presidential forums and things like that, and that it was racist and it was too bad for me. And I started saying, what is going on? Why is this media company no longer interested in reporting news? Because when I got there, they said, we're not going to be partisan. And so I got angry. I tried to break my contract less than just over a year into it. I tried breaking my contract and they didn't want to. They actually paid me more. And then finally my contract ended and I left. And I'm particularly angry with how the media is manipulating people. And they've always kind of been, but this is just worse. It's getting worse and worse every day. So I'll tell you my motivations and what I see. My videos are often targeting the mainstream media, praising someone like Tucker Carlson, for instance, but criticizing someone like Brian Stelter. Why? Tucker Carlson is a counter narrative. My content is a counter narrative because the media is lying and not telling you what's actually going on. If we were getting a fair shake from the likes of the New York Times and ABC and CBS and NBC, etc., then I wouldn't have to criticize them all the time. And I would be more likely to point criticisms at Fox News or as any other channel. But I'll tell you this. The left likes to talk about One American News, right? Or Breitbart. And they say they're fake news and they're creating a rabbit hole and blah, blah, blah. But they're not. The fake news is coming from the mainstream media. So it's kind of like this. If the mainstream news, CNN, were doing their jobs and everything was fine, I'd absolutely defend them. I'd say they're doing a great job. They're not. They canceled Piers Morgan because he was criticizing news outlets for not covering Hunter Biden's laptop. They're clearly not doing a good job. Why would I dedicate my time to small conservative websites when the entire journalism apparatus has become corrupt? Can I criticize the likes of Breitbart and Fox News? Sure. But it's nowhere near the magnitude of danger that we're getting from a mainstream media that is lying all day, every day. Think about this. Are you going to turn on Fox News and hear great things about Joe Biden? Actually, yes, sometimes you will. Seriously. Just the other day, they had someone from some Democrat campaign defending Joe Biden and the Democrat position. But their pundits, they're mostly going to frame things beneficial to Trump, not completely. That's why I say Fox News isn't nearly that bad. If you go to Breitbart.com, are you going to get a bunch of here's why Joe Biden's actually good? No, you're going to get Joe Biden is bad. And if you come to my channel, are you going to see that as well? No. You are not likely going to see a video dedicated to why Trump is evil or corrupt or why Joe Biden is great. Why? First of all, it is extremely difficult to just pile on to the corrupt narrative. Well, I mean, look, there's a lot of things to criticize Trump over. But the way I view Trump and his business practices and the things he's done as some of it, yeah, absolutely worthy of criticism. And so I try to make sure I do point these things out and I'm fair. But it's kind of like you're looking at this little tiny shark in the water and you're like, that thing might be a problem. And then there's the entire the Democrat establishment infrastructure, a great white. Do I care that Breitbart is not going to criticize Trump for the most part? Yeah, I mean, I think they should. But am I more worried that NBC, CBS, CNN, etc. are lying to tens of millions to hundreds of millions of people? Substantially worse. You cannot compare the viewership of Breitbart or me to the likes of CNN. So I'll tell you what motivates me. Never been a big Trump fan. Never been a MAGA wearing whatever. I didn't vote in 2016. I'm voting now for a variety of reasons. Most of you know, foreign policy, riots, etc. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to be the most excited person about doing it, but I think the Democrats have gone nuts. What I see is a corrupt establishment that needs to be called out and challenged. And so I will do that. My personal politics, I'm an independent who leans left. And many people like me have decided they're going to be voting for Donald Trump. Why? Because I don't think Republicans are evil. Well, apparently that makes me right because the left has gone nuts. But I'll tell you what's going to happen. In the next cycle or whatever, when the shift flips back or whatever, maybe Republicans win everything and the Democrats are out, then it will start to change, I guess. I'll start covering content where I'm like, this is not true, that's not true, and the right will be upset about it, perhaps, because I'm going to call it out where it needs to be called out. But I'll tell you my opinion right now. The left has gone insane. CNN is not even trying to hide it anymore. They're canceling people who would dare say a positive word of Trump. I could sit down with Brian Stelter, and he can talk about lies coming out of right-wing media or whatever, and I can say, give me some examples for sure. Oh, yeah, definitely, we should criticize them. You betcha. We can talk about Trump's resorts and putting people up, government using, government contracts, military staying at his resorts and things like that, and I've criticized those. By all means, to the conversation. But the mainstream media in this country overwhelmingly is deceptive and is lying to us. And I've experienced it firsthand when they lie about me because they don't like having their power challenged. But I'm not going to keep this one. I'll wrap it up. Listen, the general point is these companies want to make money. So when their audience says, how dare you praise Trump? CNN sees it and they say, okay, stop praising Trump. Don't have anyone on who would dare criticize the machine. And they are chasing after an audience. That is corruption. That needs to be called out. I'll tell you this. I think I'm worthy of criticism for having content that's almost exclusively critical of Democrats. Sure. Okay, bring it up. I'm one person. If you've got left-wing individuals who are almost exclusively critical of Republicans, that's great. They're one person. If you go on YouTube and you can find Kyle Kalinske and Tim Pool and Jimmy Dore and Steven Crowder, we can point our criticism to the Democrats periodically, Republicans periodically, some with a focus particularly in one direction, more so than others. But you are going to a platform that gives you a mixed bag. When you go to the mainstream media, what do you get? They walk in lockstep with the Democratic Party. That's the problem we face as a country. People need to break out of that. I'll tell you what, we'd be better off with, I would much prefer that all of the viewers, every single one of them, was following Kyle Kalinske. That's it. Imagine if NBC, ABC, CNN, and all of their viewers left, and Kyle Kalinske, who was a progressive, all of a sudden saw himself getting 500 million views per month. I would much prefer that to the establishment mainstream media. Kyle is progressive, but he's honest. That's the thing. By all means, go and watch the progressives on YouTube. And you can also watch the moderates, the independents, the conservatives, whatever you want to call them. People who point left, people who point right. You don't get that with mainstream media. I would rather progressive YouTubers get all of the views. Not all of them. Some of them are bad. But I think particularly, Kyle does a pretty good job. And he tweets things that are fairly honest. He gives credit to Trump when he thinks he needs to. He's defended right-wing individuals, but he is a progressive, and I respect that. You take a look at mainstream media, they won't even have on Piers Morgan because he dared criticize them. The system is broken. Happy Saturday, everybody. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.